Welcome, friends, to the Campus Ministry Today podcast, sponsored by VIA Students. My name is Steve Shadrack, and my boss, the director of VIA Students, Clayton Bullion, will be on the line as well today for this exciting episode that we've got in store for you. The past few weeks, we've been hearing from some of our main session speakers for EDM 25, this collegiate ministry conference coming up in May in Fort Worth. And so we're giving you a peek behind the curtains and a chance to get to know some of the plenary speakers and in an offstage format, and really get to know them on a personal basis and what God is doing in their lives and through their lives. And today we have a great man, one of my close friends that I've gotten to spend time with him in his home country of Ethiopia, Robel Disasa. And everybody calls him something different, Robbie or Robel, and so he's got a lot of people who love him around the world, and I hope you can come to EDM conference and get to know him. But take it away, Clayton, if you would, and let's get to know our guest.
Of course. Well, Robel, first off, it's an honor to get to spend some time with you. And part of our hope in this is that they get to hear who you are and who you were as a college student. And so to kind of kick this off, just kind of briefly tell us about your family, tell us about ministry, who you are. Introduce us to our listeners today.
Yeah, so I am Robel. People call me Robbie as well. Many students would really love to call me Robbie. So you can call me Robel, Robbie. Yeah, that's fine. So I was born and raised in a Christian family. And I came to know Jesus Christ more intimately by the time I was in college, a student. I studied mechanical engineering, and by the time I joined my university back then, we didn't have a single staff worker of any campus ministry. So we were by ourselves. So while I was a student, God has really given me an opportunity to serve students while I was a student by myself. So that has really laid a strong foundation for me to serve students after graduation. So I'm married, and we have like 2 children. My firstborn, his name is Fikr. In our language, Amharic, Fikr means love. So you can call him baby love. So, and the second one is a girl, baby girl. We got her like a month ago. So she's like 1 month old. Her name is Mehret. In our language, it means mercy. So you can call her baby Mercy. So I have been serving in student ministry for the last 20 years, 20 plus years. At different capacity. After graduation, I became faculty member in the university that I was, studying. I was teaching like different courses in mechanical engineering, but at the same time, I was part-time staff for the organization that I have been working for the last, 13 years. 20 years. So I was part-time. Then after that, I became full-time, and it's been like 13 years since I became full-time in the student ministry. So I was serving in different capacities, and the last 9 years, I was leading this organization called EVASU, which stands for Evangelical Students Union of Ethiopia. That's a campus ministry in Ethiopia. Yes.
So, Robel, what I got from that is that you're the smartest person on this podcast. You're an engineer,
No.
college professor, and you pick out the best names for your children, love and mercy. So it's really beautiful. And so, thank you for making time for us, because I know having a newborn in the house, it's disruptive to the schedule. So you've also you've served in several capacities, but take us back. Who who were you when you were a college student? What does 18, 19, 20-year-old Robel look like?
Yeah. So as I have already mentioned, I was born and raised in a Christian family. So starting from my childhood, I used to go to church, and um, I grew up in the church, we having different kinds of like kids ministry and so on and so on. But to be honest with you, I came to know Jesus Christ more intimately by the time I was a college student. Um, so by the time I joined freshman student, of course, like many of my um, friends, I was so ambitious. I want to pursue my study, and also I want to get into different kinds of businesses and so on. So, but college ministry has really given me an amazing experience of like studying my Bible, for example. I Even though I was born and raised in a Christian family in the church, but my level of discipleship has really changed, and my life has been transformed while I was college student. So it has really contributed in my life, uh, because I learned how to read my Bible, so seriously, but at the same time having the right kind of meaning, um, intimacy with God, like my prayer life, my discipline, my devotion, all those kinds of my habit was being formed while I was a student. But in addition, uh, you know, uh, being uh, a student of like 19 years old, like 20 years old, I was leading around probably 400 students or something like that. As I have already mentioned to you, we didn't have a staff worker during that time. Of course, we have like friends from the church who are coming to that group and sharing the word of God, praying with us, and so on and so on. But that experience has really given me um, an amazing, I would say, experience of leadership as well. By the way, most of the principles that I am using right now for any kind of leadership, I got it while I was a student. So I strongly believe student ministry is a place where you know people got shaped, and it's a place where people got transformed. So that's the reason why I am still in student ministry after graduation. I graduated like 20 years ago, but still I'm with a student because I strongly believe that that's a place where people got transformed. So I am so grateful to the Lord when I reflect back. I'm so grateful to the Lord because God has really given me an amazing experience by the time when I was at the prime age of my life. So that age is an amazing age. You can easily form your habit. You can easily form your thoughts. You can easily form your philosophy, life philosophy. So uh, when I just reflect back, that was my um, probably prime of my life. That is where I got to know God more intimately.
Gosh.
Robel, I got to spend some great time with you in Ethiopia, with hundreds of your students and staff. What a great experience for me to get a close-up view and get to know your leaders and your student leaders, and be able to teach and train and serve there in Ethiopia. It was a great experience for me, an honor for me, and to get a close-up view of Ivasu, working on campuses, Clayton, all over the country. Thousands and thousands of students involved, and just really, really sharp, dedicated staff. And so I think there's a real move of God in Ethiopia, Robel. I think you do too, especially over the last several years and
Yes.
under your leadership. And you were the general secretary of Ivasu. You might tell our listeners what that means, what Ivasu is, what the meaning is there. But how would you describe what God has been doing among university students in Ethiopia over the last number of years, Robel?
Okay. You know, uh, yeah. So, but I want to start from the macro, picture, like from the big picture. God is really, doing, amazing things in Ethiopia. So just to give you some highlights, what God is really doing in Ethiopia, like 60 years ago, 50 years ago, the number of believers, like the number of evangelical believers, used to be less than 1%, but now it has grown to 20%. So I would say around 30 or 35 million people came to Christ within the last 50 years. So you can see how God is really doing amazing things among the churches in Ethiopia. So that's a kind of macro situation that we are navigating through. So as we are part of this, big picture, IVASU, which stands for, it's an abbreviation which stands for Evangelical Students Union of Ethiopia. It has been started by students, like very few students who used to come for Bible study, being 5 or 6, like 60 years ago. God has really blessed that small beginning. And currently we are serving more than 50,000 students in more than 180 campuses. Um, and the other thing that we are so grateful about this movement is that uh, in this movement, students are the major players. We got very limited number of staff workers. Okay, we got like 120 staff workers serving the 50,000 students. So basically it means the students themselves are the ones who are really running the ministry. So if you go to a campus, you would find like very few students, 7, 9 students or 11 students, like main leaders, but having like different, shepherd chain, trying to, serve 1,000 students or something like that in one campus. So you see what God is really doing among those young people. And at the same time, God is really, bringing so many students. We equip our students so that they would be a living witness for Jesus Christ while they are, in the campus. And every year, thousands of students come to Jesus Christ through the witness of those students. So we equip our students to be a living witness in their campus. By the way, unlike the US or some other countries, in Ethiopia, there is this culture which we inherited from this communist region, in which campuses are totally secular, meaning we are not, like as a campus ministers, we are not allowed to get into the campus. Only students and teachers are allowed to get into the campuses. So
Right.
so we don't have any access of the campus. Rather, what we do is we equip those students outside of the campus, probably using the nearby church facilities. And those students are the ones who are doing almost everything inside their campus. They run Bible studies, they run, prayer meetings, they run like big events, weekly events. So that's something, God is really doing. So we are so grateful for the gift of students leadership in Ivaso. We really appreciate what God is really doing among those students. And there is amazing disciple making movement as well. We do like small group ministry. in which students themselves are the ones who are running those small groups. And we have mission mobilization trainings in which our staff workers, train students so that they would have a missional mindset. Because we strongly believe that, God is really preparing those students for their future engagement in the kingdom of God. And we consider ourselves to be a launching pad of missionaries who would be going to different areas, okay? And, not only geographically, but in terms of sectors. For example, like people like me who graduated in engineering, for example, many of my friends, they live in United Arab Emirates or Saudi Arabia or, Qatar, doing those jobs. But at the same time, they are amazing agents of the kingdom of God in those places. So we have this unique opportunity of like mobilizing students so that they would have a missional mindset. So whenever we are teaching our students, we usually say that you are like professional missionaries, okay? Conventional missionaries cannot go to Somalia, for example. Conventional missionaries cannot go to Sudan, but those professionals can go to those places, being doctors, engineers, teachers. So that's the kind of thing that we are trying to do among our students. And the other one is leadership development, because since those students are the ones who are leading the movement, we equip them so that they would be servant leaders. So we do different kinds of conferences, seminars for those students so that they would have that, missional leadership, servant leadership for the things that they are doing right now. But at the same time, those students would be leaders of the nation, leaders of different organizations, even leaders of the church, by the way. So if you just take me 20 years ago, I was a student leader, but now I've been leading this organization. So it's the same. Like those students who are currently leading students, they would be the future leaders of Ivasu. For example, like the current leader of Ivasu, the person who, who is currently a leader of Ivasu, he was a student while I was a campus staff back then. So that's a kind of thing that we are doing in Ethiopia. Yeah, in the students campus ministry in Ethiopia. Yes.
Robel, that's amazing. What I love about your situation in Ethiopia is, a lot of times, as at least in the U.S., we talk about the obstacle of, well, the university doesn't want me on campus, or I can't organize this, or in Ethiopia, that's the norm. Non-students, the campus is locked down, only students and faculty can get on there. But when you've taken that obstacle and you've turned it into the opportunity, because this is how we develop leaders.
Exactly.
You have to lead the small group. I have to train you how to lead the small group. I can't hold your hand. You have to organize this, and so it's produced this leadership pipeline.
Yes.
Where you have to do it, and it's really beautiful. And I would say to my peers listening to this, how does your discipleship change if you can't get on campus? And students really do have to do everything, because that's the goal, is for them to be able to be leaders. So Robel, you and I met at EDM 23.
Yes.
And I remember getting to sit with you and Paul Wooster and just have a great conversation what God is doing in Ethiopia. But you also led a workshop for us on multiplying missional movements outside the U.S. And I remember walking by that room, and it was packed. People standing everywhere, people in the hall leaning in. You were famous, and people I knew were coming out, and I said, tell me about this. Like, what's the buzz? And one person said, well, the question was like, how are we developing students in Ethiopia? And Robel said, well, there's three things: prayer, fasting, and jail. And that has stuck with me. And so finally, I've got you on another call, and I want to ask. So tell me how God is. What is God using to build up students? Tell me more to that story. How is
Yeah,
God working?
yeah. So, Clayton, we are navigating through like very different, very difficult situations. Almost, I led Ivasu for 9 years, and I would say every week or sometimes every day, there are so many challenging situations on the way. And when I just reflect back, I am so grateful to the Lord for all those kinds of challenges, because God has really built some sort of resilience, not only on me, but with my team, but and also with the students as well. So, by the way, the whenever we are dealing with those kinds of challenges, it can there are two options. It might break you, or it can make you to something greater, So, uh, for example, one of the situation that we are passing through, if you just see Ethiopia demographically, the northern part of Ethiopia is highly populated with Orthodox Christians, like a very traditional kind of Christianity. And those people are very, very against to the evangelical community. But we have campuses in that area. And in Ethiopia, you are not, choosing college where to go. Rather, it's a government which assigns you to some sort of college, okay? Because it's a government that pays the tuition for those students. So it's a government that assigns. So you got like so many students who are Christians, born and raised in a Christian family, but assigned to a very hostile uh, places towards Christianity, evangelical Christianity, okay? So, for example, let me give you a story. Like 2022, November, few students were going out for mission outreach, and our students are very passionate about mission outreach, and they went to this a very war-affected area, just collecting like some soaps, clothes, and so on and so on, just to give and distribute to those to those highly affected people. But the local officers, like police officers, put them in jail without any charge, and they stayed there for 8 days in the jail. By the way, jail in Ethiopia are not like the ones that you know. With a very small area, probably hundreds of people might be, piled up, and you might need to wait probably 2 hours or 3 hours in order to use bathroom or something like that. Okay, that's a very, very, very totally, I would say uncomfortable situation. So
Of course.
by the time this happened, I was in the US, and I was really um, uh, devastated with the situation. And after so many efforts, uh, those students got released, and I called them and I talked to them, and I was expecting lots of frustrations or lots of complaints, but they were really joyful by the fact that they were in jail for 8 days. And I just asked them what happened. Then they just said they experienced the suffering of Jesus Christ, and they became very happy for being partakers of the suffering of Jesus Christ. That they told me. And they just said, by the time they were there, they also shared their faith to the prisoners, and few of them came to Christ by the time they were in that jail as well. So uh, there are so many amazing stories that I can tell you, like hundreds of stories like this. And those stories would just encourage us to trust the Lord more, to pray, to fast, and to seek the Lord, because we don't have any kind of resources in order to tackle most of the challenges that we are facing. So what we usually do is just leaning towards God, so that we may hear from Him, and so that we may have guidance from God, and so on and so on. So we have uh, like that kind of culture, like prayer, fasting. That's a kind of thing that we usually do whenever we are having like conferences. For example, in most of our national conferences, we may have like 4 or 5 days total, and we assign one day for prayer and fasting, because that's what we want our students to learn and to experience. And that's what our students, that's what we really love our students to do whenever they are facing with different kinds of challenges.
Well, that's humbling to hear. Just I love the testimony of we don't have the resources to deal with these obstacles, and so our only option is to pray and fast.
Mhm.
And sometimes in the Western world, we just assume that we have the resources, and so we don't need to pray and fast. And I'm going to be in Ethiopia this summer with our mutual friend Teriku, and just to reiterate to those of you guys listening, there's a day on the schedule for prayer and fasting, and it's just part of the training, part of the conference. And so
Yes.
you practice what you preach. And so, man, thank you for sharing that. Shad, you've got some comments on that, or got another question for Robel?
Well, we're going to be closing up here in a few minutes, but we are inviting church-based and campus-based collegiate workers from all over the United States. Every state will be represented, Robel, but also from a number of different countries. Hundreds and hundreds will be there, and we're certainly praying for a great response and for God to do a mighty work there. EDM, for you that don't know what that stands for, it's not electronic dance music, sorry. It's evangelism, disciple making, and missions mobilization. And so we unapologetically pull together just collegiate ministry staff, not students. Whether you're associated with a church or an organization, it's going to be all the major ministries will be there, all the national directors will be there. But Robel, why do you feel strongly about that conference? Why would you come over in 23, come over in 25, recruit others to join you, bring others? What tell our listeners why you feel strongly about that particular gathering?
Yeah. So as part of the EDM 23, and from the name by itself, it really tells you, it focuses on the basics of Christianity, like evangelism, disciple making, and mission mobilization. And as I have already mentioned to you, student ministry is a place where I got transformed. I got to know Jesus Christ more intimately. I got to develop, spiritual habits, and I would really love every student in the campus all over the world to experience what I really experienced. And I strongly believe that EDM is an amazing platform for staff workers in order to equip them so that they would really take evangelism, disciple making, and mission mobilization to be very seriously. And if you just come to Ivasu, our 4 major programs that we are running are like evangelism, disciple making, mission mobilization, and leadership development. So basically it's the same thing that we are doing here, and I strongly believe that it's going to, transform thousands of students by equipping those, collegiate ministers coming together, for this conference. So I really, really, a strong. I strongly believe in the conference, and I am really looking for what God is really doing in that conference. Yes.
Well, we're honored you're going to be there, and I appreciate the challenge, Shad. Maybe we need to make it LEDM or EDML, and consider a name change. Then we call it LEDM. So no, but EDM 25. Robel, we're grateful you're going to be here, and we are just
I'm so honored to be
stoked
part
for
of this as well. Yeah.
So, well, thank you for being here. Thank you for being on the show, friends. Wherever you're listening at, man, I hope it's a beautiful day on campus. I just want you to know you're making a difference in the lives of students. Continue to share the gospel, even when it gets hard. Continue to make disciples. Continue to cast a larger vision than just going to class and living everyday life. Continue to lift up your students' eyes to the nations. So thank you guys for joining us, and we just appreciate you being a part of this. And Robel, thank you for being here again.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it was fantastic to have you, Robel. I look forward to seeing you in person again. You've got such a great spirit, great heart, great humility about you, and just your relationship with God and how you treat others and serve others is just really a role model for us. I've been thinking a lot about that. And Paul Wooster and I, and Clayton is certainly participating. We're writing a book right now for college ministry staff. We put together the fuel and the flame for students. Please order boatloads of that for all of your students for the summer projects and for this fall and so forth, even for the spring here. But this one is for staff, church-based collegiate pastors and staff, and then the campus-based organizational staff. And we talk about in there, what does it mean to be a good shepherd as a leader, shepherding other staff, shepherding students. And we're trying to finish it up, Clayton, aren't we? Trying to get a free copy into the hands of every person that attends EDM conference May 6th through 9th in Fort Worth. So anyway, that will be that's what I'm working on today, is trying to work on that manuscript. And so we hope to put that in your hands. And so this ministry, via students.org, please go there. We're just here to serve you, serve the collegiate body of Christ around the world, and to help us kind of get on track and stay on track on EDM, those three parts of the Great Commission. So be sure to subscribe to this podcast. Be sure to subscribe to viastudents.org. I think we have about 6,500 or so that every Wednesday morning, there's something in your email box, a podcast, an article, a resource, a tool to help you be more effective in your collegiate ministry with students. And also lots of information there, and all the leaders and the speakers and the workshops and everything about the EDM conference. So please go there and register and recruit everybody you can. It's going to be a great time. So until next time, God bless.